Welcome everybody to another episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined on this episode by Marion Zammit. Marion is the head of Medical Cannabis at the Malta Enterprise, and for those who've been keeping up to date on the news, you'll have heard that Malta are making a lot of moves with the medical cannabis industry in Europe. They've got a new tech startup, and Malta Enterprise, by all accords, are going after this industry with a gusto, and it's great to be joined by you. How are you keeping, Marion?
We're keeping very well here, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm delighted to chat to you. It's great to see Malta Enterprise making such innovative moves in this industry, and there's lots of lessons to be learned by the rest of the European governments. Can we basically give everybody just a quick overview of how you ended up at Malta Enterprise and the cannabis industry in general?
Yes, sure. Malta Enterprise has been pivotal in the setting up of this industry from its very first inception. So when 2 years and a half ago, almost 3 years ago, we started conceiving of a legislation which allows for the use of cannabis for medical purposes as well as research purposes, Malta Enterprise has had a central role, both in establishing the legislation as well as attracting the top companies in the sector to start setting up their activities in Malta. As we have gone along throughout these 3 years, we have not only continued to attract key companies to start working from Malta, but have also supported them throughout the implementation of their setting up stage.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, because we've spoken to a couple of the people that you have over there, like Nick Pateras from Materia Ventures, Deepak, who we spoke about, and then we had Jonas Simmerman on 2 weeks ago. So you seem to be developing and cultivating a lot of the top talent in the industry are making Malta their base. It's one of the things I think Ireland are well behind. When I see Europe in the long-term overview, I see Malta and Ireland being two of the premier destinations for your corporation, with the incentivized tax rate, with the highly skilled workforce. And I think Malta have just gotten out of the blocks so much quicker than Ireland. And I think the leaders over here aren't as forward-thinking as the guys that you have in charge in Malta. First topic that I'm going to move straight onto, it's what I hope to see on a lot of packaged good products in the medical cannabis industry over the next while, and it's the Made in Malta sign. Can you tell all the audience a little bit about this and what's the strategy behind it?
Sure. The Made in Malta sign should be a synonym of high quality pharmaceutical grade products. And I'm using the term pharmaceutical on purpose and not medical. The reason being that the regulator in Malta, the Malta Medicines Authority, is making it a requirement that all the facilities are EU GMP licensed, as though they were producing a fully fledged pharmaceutical with a marketing authorization. So even these are medical products and do not require a marketing authorization, or do not as yet have a marketing authorization, one can rest assured that the process is as rigorous and as restricting as though one were producing a fully fledged pharmaceutical. Not only, but the ownership of the product by the producer does not stop at the point of batch release from the production facility, but the ownership continues up to the stage where the distributor releases that product on the market. So before the distributor releases the product on the market, the ownership and therefore the responsibility and the liability are still held by the producer in Malta. This is obviously indicative of the very high quality and how seriously we are taking this sector, and how not difficult, but how rigorous and thorough we are. The medical cannabis sector in Malta builds over decades of experience in the pharmaceutical sector. Maybe this is not something that everyone is aware of, but Malta has a very important pharmaceutical cluster. It's a very well consolidated cluster with renowned names operating in the sector. Companies like Teva Pharmaceuticals, for instance, operate from Malta. And this has made it such that Malta has not only the right environment, but there are the right skills, we have the right regulatory expertise, And we have a consolidated and established cluster, which is enabled also by a very robust ancillary industry. So, for instance, when you consider the cluster has its own dedicated printing press, which is dedicated to printing of foils, vignettes, labels, and all the other materials related to the pharma industry. We have precision engineering companies which provide the industry with the tooling for instance, tableting machines, encapsulating machines. There are companies which are specialized in automation lines, and therefore they come in very handy for the packaging lines and the automated bottling lines and all that. So it is a very, very healthy cluster. So when it came to evolving into the medical cannabis scenario, it was building up on all of this expertise. And this has facilitated the industry in various ways. These last 2 days, I've been touring around the facilities that are currently setting up in the medical cannabis sector, and all of them boasted of a team which is highly skilled and highly operational. So these companies were enabled to set up so quickly in Malta, mostly because they found the right skills, the right regulatory environment, and the regulator which is highly competent. The Malta Medicines Authority is in fact one of the most highly reputed authorities within the EU, and it was one of the first 7 which were also FDA accredited. So this goes to show how highly reputed the Medicines Agency is. Having the Medicines Authority as the regulator of the sector gives more credibility, more reassurance to anyone who is going to use the Made in Malta brand.
Okay, amazing. I look forward to seeing that Made in Malta brand grow now over the next couple of years. I think it's a phenomenal idea. And as I said, I think when you look at the overview of Europe, it's going to be Malta and Ireland that can sell the services, and the specific sectors for the cannabis industry. We're never going to be the mass cultivation operations. But like what you guys have done, the extraction, the distillation, the packaging, this can all be done in a country that has a great corporate tax rate, a great skilled workforce. And I think most global corporations, when they're finally in this space in Europe, it'll be between Ireland and Malta. As with the pharmaceutical industry, we've got Pfizer and the likes here, and you guys have Moderna and a few others there. So it's an amazing to see. And I know, again, you've got so much talent that are happening there. Tell me about what it's like attracting the talent. Is there a specific, are you guys pitching to companies, or are you guys having companies come to you and you're setting then the specific terms and framework that allows them to basically grow their companies at the best rate possible?
So obviously 3 years ago, we were one of the first movers and we had first mover advantage. However, we didn't make it too easy in that we adopted a process, which is a 2-stage process. The first process is to apply with Malta Enterprise for a letter of intent, and that gives you the green light to start implementing your project. And then eventually you start working with the Medicines Authority in order to obtain the license. Our application process is very, very rigorous. So in order to, in the first years when we were attracting the top companies, there were 3 main criteria. Namely, the financial viability of the project that we were looking into, obviously due diligence. It's important in all sectors, but in cannabis, it was even more important. So even the most minor of glitches could result in the non-approval of the project. And third but not least, we were looking at experience. So in the beginning, we wanted to make sure that anyone who is operating in the sector has an established track record of producing cannabis and dealing with cannabis in the sector. And that meant that the first companies that were attracted to Malta included the big names like Afria, like MGC, like AMEC Life Sciences. We have Panaxia, we have all of it. We have Materia, we have Hoshi. So it was being first movers and having this process, this transparent process in place, obviously attracted the big names into coming to Malta. At this stage, however, we are also looking, and hence, for instance, Tech4Can, we are also looking at adding depth and layers to the industry by opening up to startup activities. Startups bring energy, startups bring enthusiasm, startups bring innovation. And unless you have a healthy cluster of startups operating in any sector, you cannot guarantee that you are going to have research, innovation, and development of the sector. So this is our next phase, where we are looking at key startup activities. We are finding ways how to support them. Tech4Can is, and I can say the name because they have rendered it public themselves, are very eager to start up their tech accelerator activity from Malta. It's going to be the first medical cannabis accelerator in all of Europe, so we're very excited about that. So now the industry is not only attracting just the top companies, but also adding flavor, depth, and interest by having these other companies joining in the cluster.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's the proper direction, as opposed to focusing on just one or two of the large corporations. Cultivating a sector that provides a multitude of services will ensure the longevity of the Made in Malta brand name. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you on the show today. I hope we can touch base again towards the end of the year and see where Made in Malta has grown to. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Marion. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you for inviting me over. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.